like a different day if you get behind a really good hedge. The woodland will provide a lot more shelter for our livestock, and as well as increasing all the biodiversity for the wild birds and things.
We are the Great Northumberland Forest, a project to plant millions of trees, creating more wooded landscapes across Northumberland by 2030. Trees offer a range of benefits for you, your land and your business, so whether you want to diversify your income, increase biodiversity, improve soil and water health, or reduce carbon in the atmosphere, trees can help play a big part. We're determined to leave a better, more diverse and more productive natural environment for future Northumbrians. I'm Mark Child, Project Lead for Great Northumberland Forest, and in today's episode I'm chatting with Carron Craighead about her site and how she's improved it. Carron is a livestock farmer at Middle Coldcotes. Its lowland setting has 40 suckler cows and 160 breeding ewes. Certified organic since 2003, the farm includes a 3-mile hedge creating a biosecure enclosure offering support to insects and bird life. In this episode she talks about why she wants to establish more hedging and extend existing wet woodland, and how she has done this alongside her countryside stewardship agreement.
There were old hedge lines that were really just grown into sort of big old hawthorns, and a lot of them had sort of toppled over or split, and they were like they still provided a bit of shelter, but you definitely couldn't call them proper hedges. They were all open in the bottom, and although there was birds would be in the tops, there were generally things like crows and stuff like that, rather than the lovely sort of layers of birds' nests that you get once you've got a really dense hedge in the bottom. And you know, all the different varieties of birds have different nesting sites and the shelter, you know, for a ewe with 2 new lambs, or just lambs that are just a couple of days old. It's like a different day if you get behind a really good hedge out of the wind, you know, it makes such a difference for the shelter for the livestock as well.
And you've got a couple of woodland blocks as well on the farm?
Yes, we have. We've got what we call our Patterson's wood, which at the moment it's grazed by 3 texel tups in there. It's just mainly just been allowed to sort of do its own thing, and then we have the more ancient Benridge bog, which is on the Swallow Syke, which is an important waterway that was named, and we were in the process of replanting 0.4 hectares of that, and we have chosen trees through Trees Please that match the woodland that's there. So
extending that wet woodland into that additional area.
Well, yes, it was harvested actually, I think, in 1975. I was only 15 then, so I didn't take an awful lot of heed of what was happening on the farm at that stage. But you can still see a few old ancient stumps, and if there's any fallen wood comes down in the Benridge bog, it just tends to do its own thing. You know, we don't actively manage it, or not as so far anyway.
Yeah. So can you tell me why you've been looking to increase both kind of hedgerow and tree cover? So obviously there was that initial work for the compliance for organic, but looking to do more now. So just reasons behind that.
Yes, well, a lot of our internal fences, you know, the ones between fields, they just been allowed to be what they were before, sort of thing, just like big old hawthorns. So we had the opportunity when we saw the Great North Forest programme coming up to hopefully plant a little bit of woodland back up again, and also do these 2 new internal hedgerows and get all the benefit, you know, that brings for the shelter for the livestock and all the extra bird things that happened.
And tree supply is quite a big thing in terms of going forward. What other challenges have you found when looking to sort of, I guess, plan and deliver on woodland schemes?
I think we like to rotivate our hedgerows. I know a lot of people just use a spit and just like make a gap for the tree and pop the tree in, but we've noticed that like occasionally with our sort of really heavy clay soils, it just tends to that you end up with like bonsai type trees. And I can demonstrate this. We went to a farm at Long Famlington. His name escapes me now, but he put in some hedgerows. We've been doing hedgerows from 2003 going forward for the organic thing. And we were looking at ones that he just planted last year, and they were better than ours that had been planted 3 years earlier. And we sort of said, you know, why has this flourished really well? And he says, you've got to really get the soil broken up. So the little fine roots of the hawthorns and the other things can really get it going, and it's made a tremendous difference. Now there's no comparison with the first hedges that we did, and then once we started rotivating, it just makes a tremendous difference. So I would advise anybody that's got heavy clay, I know fair enough if you've got contractors come and they want to get 400 done a day or whatever they want to do, and they might not want to do that, but for us it made a big difference to how the hedgerow came away.
And do you have any other concerns about getting the hedgerows established alongside livestock?
No, because we always would put the stock-proof fence up first before we'd even started any preparations. It made it a bit more awkward actually, because we ended up having to lift the rotavator over with the JCB loader into where we'd already got a fence put up, just because there was no access without starting to take the fence down again, which seemed a bit over the top just to do a bit of rotavating. But yes, just because of our soil type, I think. Yes.
Okay. What other advice would you give to another landowner who's thinking about expanding or filling in gaps in hedgerows?
Oh, I think they should definitely, if they can get a chance of a grant to do it and some support to help them, advise them on, what would be good for that area. I think it makes a tremendous difference, not just for the biodiversity, but just for the shelter of the livestock, and it really, when we walked around, we did a video call with these photography wildlife club, and when I was going around taking some photographs of what would look really good for this program that we were doing in October, I was really amazed at how many berries there were. So I was actually almost able to make Christmas cards by putting the camera through. I was taking photos of livestock, but I was actually taking it through the hedgerow, so you had it was surrounded by rosehip berries, and it looked a bit too Christmassy card at the end, but it was tremendous for our photography club that I was doing last autumn.
Has there been an improvement for biodiversity and different species benefiting from the additional hedgerows?
Oh yes, most certainly, Mark, there definitely has. You can see lots of different birds using the hedgerow, and we have sort of corridors linking the rivers through to the woodlands, and they can sort of use the thick hedgerows now, because some of them were established well in 2003, so they're getting on 20 years old. They're really thick, decent, dense hedges now, and the amount of berries and sort of seeds that it produces for the birds, it's made a tremendous difference.
And looking ahead, what do you hope to see at Middle Coldcotes, say in 10 years' time? How would you like to see the schemes developing?
On our farm, just particularly?
Yeah.
Yes, I think so. Well, I think, hopefully those hedgerows are going to be as good as the ones that we've done in the last sort of 20 years. So we know what to expect and the sort of amount of fruit and seed and berries that they produce for the birds. And just the shelter, sometimes if we're not that far from the coast, we're about 22 miles from the coast or something, and if you get a northeast biting cold wind and then you get sleet and rain with it, it can be awful hard on sheep with fairly new lambs. So the fact that we've got these 2 extra new hedgerows, which both run east to west actually as it happens, and the woodland, will provide a lot more shelter for our livestock, and as well as increasing all the biodiversity for the wild birds and things. The very good thing with the Great North Forest is it's 100% funded, whereas the countryside stewardship thing, there was capital works for fencing and for some of the trees, but not for the actual cost of actually rotavating the land or actually planting the trees. That was all just on your own, on the farmer's side of things. So I think, the amount of shelter and the amount of extra biodiversity you can create by either laying an old hedgerow and actually getting the bottom thickened out again, or replanting up areas where maybe the hedgerow has failed for whatever reason. And you must keep the livestock off it though, because it needs protection for a good 10 years to really establish itself. And now at some of the stages of the new hedgerows that we've created in 2003, they really need laying now, but they're just so beautiful at the moment. It just seems a shame to even do that, and they provide so much shelter.
Yeah. So I guess it's just having that plan clear in your head and understanding which bits you can do when and
yes,
see how it works.
seeing how it works. But I think, if you take the advice of the agents that are working for the Great North Forest, they'll really help advise you. And I know when I was talking to Tim, he was saying that there's other farmers have had to sort of go for more of a parkland type basis where they're just planting a few trees and obviously protect them with their own guards. And I guess they're possibly more, ours are only sort of 40 to 60 centimetres or whatever. And, even that'll help an awful lot, breaking up fields and providing shelter.
So thank you, Carron, for joining me for the Great Northumberland Forest chat and hearing about your site near Ponteland. Next episode, I'm talking to Judith Webb, who is developing her site at Low Newton, close to Alnwick. If you have land in Northumberland and trees will help you or nature, please get in touch. You can reach us on email at inquiries.forest@northumberland.gov.uk or call us on 01670 625 002.